In a secluded spot high above the cities and gods, in the ancient Pendes Mountains, lived an extraordinary healer named Andronikos. Instead of a traditional home, his abode was an orchard filled with fig trees, wild pears, and olive trees boasting silver leaves. Their roots intertwined with thyme and lavender as a simple hut sat at its heart, almost hidden under vines and soft moss. Though he lived alone, loneliness never touched him. He conversed with plants as others might speak with priests. He sensed the gentle weight of dew, uncovered secrets in bark, and felt the roots' silent longings. Occasionally, pilgrims would climb winding trails seeking relief from their ills, heartaches, or despair. He offered them tinctures or balms without demanding payment, only the serene exchange of silence between soul and earth. Gossip suggested that no divine being had graced that mountain in eons. Whether from sacred distance or past disdain, the gods left the grove untouched. No shrines or relics adorned the land, which remained pristine, unspoiled by the outside world. This tranquility is why Andronikos chose to remain. He held little regard for temples or myths that required worship without compassion, nor for miracles that forced a price. Here, the trees and winds were his gods. His gentle movements among the blossoms formed the only prayer he needed, and he treasured it. Seasons crept slowly across the mountain. Winters cloaked the orchard in hushed stillness. Then spring arrived like a gentle applause, coaxing blooms from their slumber. Andronikos embraced each season with the patience of stone, never anticipating that this routine would be disrupted, least of all by her. On a night when the moon shone bright, casting its silver glow over the orchard, something unusual drew his attention. The blossoms glimmered with an ethereal light. Instead of swaying away, the trees leaned towards something, urging him to investigate. Stepping outside, he saw her, tall and radiant as moon milk, with eyes reminiscent of the ocean under a starry sky. She caressed a pear blossom that quivered under her touch instead of wilting. Andronikos froze, breathless. The mountain, which had known silence for centuries, was finally graced with the goddess of the moon. Selene descended with the moon, literally. In one moment, the orchard basked in familiar silver light, in the next, she stood effortlessly beneath a pomegranate tree, her feet brushing the dew-laden grass, her hair ensnaring starlight as if woven from the cosmos. No grand entrance, no divine trumpets, simply her presence. He recognized her instantly. It was not through experience with goddesses, but simply because no one else could make the orchard so still. Even the winter couldn't hush the trees as she could. The air held its breath around her. She moved gracefully, reverently, touching petals that hadn't stirred for decades. Where her fingers lingered, life returned to the trees. A fig tree bore fruit at midnight. A myrtle bush released its perfume. The untouched orchard responded, as if it had waited patiently for her all along. On that first night, they shared silence, no words, no offerings, no prayers. She nestled among the peach trees until dawn approached, gazing not at the heavens she ruled, but at the mortal grove below. When morning light broke, she vanished. With every full moon that followed, she returned, lingering longer each time. Some nights, she glided along the orchard paths, ethereal as morning mist. Other times, she perched on the cliff's edge, gazing at the stars as if forgetting their significance. The orchard welcomed her without hesitation, as did the healer. It wasn't quite romance yet. Instead, it was an unvoiced connection between two souls, one too divine to settle, the other too mortal to break free. Andronikos continued his work, nurturing herbs, grinding roots, and assisting those brave or desperate enough to find his grove. Selene spoke little but always returned. Her presence became a soothing rhythm, a comforting silence. Below, the gods remained unaware of her absence. The moon continued its path, the tides obeyed, and earthly rituals persisted unchanged. Yet something ancient stirred. A goddess found solace in a forsaken place, and the once silent mountain began to touch the divine once more. Their first contact was unplanned. Leaning against an apricot tree, Serene looked distant, her usual glow dimmed. A heaviness of sorrow clung to her, too great for words. Andronikos sensed her grief and reached out instinctively. Their fingers brushed, igniting something profound between them. A pulse, a spark, a silence slicing through the air. Serene pulled back sharply, eyes wide, not from fear, but from recognition. She had touched mortals before, poets, priests, kings, but never someone like him, never within a sanctuary so untouched by Olympus and free of consequence. Andronikos stumbled slightly, breath catching. Though he neither bled nor cried out, something surprising shifted within him. The orchard bore witness. Where he stood, a few petals surrendered, enough to hint at something unseen transitioning. Serene grasped the truth swiftly. Immortals and fragile beings rarely blend harmoniously. Every contact between them would quietly carve away a piece of his life, not taken, merely exchanged like a gift for a fleeting moment together. But he never mentioned it. Continuing with tending to his herbs, he ambled among the peach trees, listening to her stories, as if nothing had changed. However, his movements grew as if weighed down. Serene distanced herself more out of guilt than fear. She avoided close proximity, folded her hands to prevent accidental touches, and when offered fruit or tea, she let it rest on the ground before claiming it. Silence thickened around them, taut and shimmering. The orchard flourished, yet its harmony grew uneasy. Andronikos placed no blame upon her, he never urged her to leave. But they both understood this love was no ordinary bond. It didn't flourish with time, it held a hidden cost. As the moon traversed the sky, Serene pondered how long she could linger before her presence left him hollow. How long until he dared touch her again, knowing the price? Mortals weren't meant to possess the divine, yet they sometimes reach for it anyway. Serene kept descending upon the orchard every full moon, but her visits transformed. She no longer approached Andronikos first. Instead, she lingered among the orchard's outer rim, half hidden among the silver-leafed trees. Even from that distance, her presence left a mark. The fruits grew sweeter overnight. Flowers blossomed that should have wilted. The orchard pulsed gently with her light, like a tide rising and receding around a mortal man. As always, Andronikos remained busy, harvesting herbs, crafting balms, and caring for those who climbed to his grove. Yet now, he worked with a quieter resolve. Strands of silver threaded through his once black hair, fine lines began to mark his skin. Each time their hands brushed over a cup or branch, more of him ebbed away. Serene noticed. She spoke less, yet stayed longer, watching him as he grafted branches, mixed tonics, and tended wounds. Occasionally, she would hum a long-forgotten lunar hymn, and the orchard swayed gently to her voice, as if leaning in to listen. Andronikos remained steadfast, unmoved by anything other than her nearness. He never asked her to curtail her visits or mentioned the silence's hidden cost. He accepted the gradual surrender of his years, as if each was a seed nurtured under her care. The mountain's creatures began to keep their distance, and even the wind grew cautious around the grove while Serene strolled among the trees. Time seemed to hesitate. Nights stretched on, dawn lingered in coming. The orchard no longer obeyed the seasons, it bloomed only under the moon's authority, unbound by mortal time. But amid this wonder, tension brewed. The silver sundial at the orchard's heart, once merely a tool to mark cultivation days, now cast two shadows, one dark and genuine, the other pale and unsteady. The second shadow lengthened with every visit from Serene, spilling across the orchard like ink. It felt as if the land began to grasp the bargain being struck, waiting for the moment when the cost would be counted not in petals or fruits, but in the heartbeat of a mortal soul. Serene, who knew longing intimately, had navigated countless cycles, guiding tides, protecting dreams, and illuminating lovers she would never touch. But something about Andronikos' steadfast nature unraveled her composure. He didn't plead for her to stay or declare worship, he simply remained. Thus, as her touch began to diminish his existence, she resisted fleeing. She began to plot her greatest rebellion. One evening, high among the orchard trees and beneath a waxing moon, Serene etched lunar runes into the silver sundial, once used to mark harvests and solstices. She wove spells from starlight threads and combined them with fragments forgotten across time. She summoned the void between seconds, offering her divine essence to temper the relentless passage of time. The trees seemed to lean forward, as if they were listening. The wind stilled. The birds hushed. The next dawn, Andronikos felt an unsettling stillness. His tools ceased to rust. The petals he gathered remained vibrant. The bees buzzed slowly, caught in honeyed air. He sensed the truth but remained silent. That night, Serene returned and sat beside him. This time, when she touched his hand, nothing was taken. They simply breathed together. The orchard transformed into a sanctuary beyond the world. Time flowed elsewhere. Civilizations rose and fell, empires crumbled. But within the grove, everything remained unchanged. No footprints faded. No hair turned gray. Each night maintained the same length, each moonrise a perfect echo. However, divine order cannot tolerate stillness. Deep in the celestial realms, Kronos stirred, the one who measured every breath, who recorded the boundaries of every narrative, had begun to notice the missing moments. The orchard evolved into a flaw in his perfection, an area where clocks hesitated to tick. In her love, Serene had created a space where eternity paused. But for Kronos, this was a grave offense. If even one heartbeat could go unrecorded, countless others might follow. The clockmaker was coming, and the now still orchard awaited his first arrival. Kronos descended, not with thunderous fury, but with a measured, inevitable presence, like a clock's second hand nearing its mark. Time did not shatter in the orchard, instead, it constricted. The stillness Serene had bestowed began to fracture piece by piece. The wind returned, but in rough gusts. Flowers withered mid-bloom. Fruit fell from trees half-formed. Once frozen bees swirled around in chaotic confusion. The sundial cleaved cleanly down the center. Andronikos sensed the change before witnessing it. His breath quickened, aches surged through his limbs, not aging but from an influx of acceleration. Hours began to pour through him like rain. In just one night, a wrinkle deepened, a joint stiffened, and a memory blurred. Serene tried to soothe the consequences. She illuminated the grove with her gentlest light, whispered ancient hymns, knelt beside the sundial, and wept stardust into its wounds. Yet none of her efforts could slow the unraveling. Then he arrived. Kronos stood tall and pale, draped in dusk and shadows, his long pendulum swaying where a heart would be. His eyes appeared endless, swirling with every past and future, spinning quietly. He addressed Andronikos first, not Selene. A single blink passed, centuries of judgment compressed into that glance. "This place is not yours to claim," Kronos declared, voice grinding like worn gears. Selene stepped forward. "He is dying. I granted him stillness." "You granted him defiance," Kronos remarked. "He sought no eternity." "No," Andronikos admitted. "But he touched a god." Now visibly weakened, Andronikos remained silent. His gaze met Selene's, filled not with fear but understanding. She had tried to halt the world for him, he merely wished to share it. Kronos raised one hand, and the pendulum at his chest swung once. A leaf crumbled to ash. A blossom aged, turned brown, and fell. Time resumed its rightful course. The question then loomed, what price must be paid for stealing time from the god who governs it? And who would willingly offer themselves first? Kronos didn't roar, he saw no reason to do so. Time, when obeyed, flows as a steady river. Yet when resisted, it transforms into an undertow. Now the current returned. Selene remained suspended between the god of time and the man who provided her peace. The orchard, once enveloped in a dreamlike silence, now aged with every breath. Fruit turned brown on branches, leaves yellowed midair. The ground softened under Andronikos' feet, heavy with returning seasons. The healer had aged further in mere hours, his movements slower, his skin taut. Yet he stood firm, his gaze steadfast upon the goddess who loved him enough to defy the laws of the cosmos. There was no judgment in his expression, only clarity. Kronos shifted focus to Selene. "You disrupted the wheel," he stated. "You claimed what was never yours to grant." Selene didn't flinch. "I sought nothing but a moment's pause. And now," Kronos replied, "you must pay the price for that instant." As always in the realms of time, only two choices lay ahead. One could be undone, or one could be forgotten. To undo Selene's defiance would mean erasing love, the orchard, and the benevolent stillness. Andronikos would live on but would never understand why his days felt lighter or his heart heavier. To forget meant allowing the memory to persist, relinquishing what the gods hardly ever surrendered, presence. One of them would vanish, not in death, but in absence, lost even in myth. Selene caught her breath. She, the moon who brightened empires' dreams, who observed mortals rise and fall, could be erased from history. Andronikos stepped forward, tremors in his legs. "I am mortal," he stated steadfastly. "Let it be me." Kronos shook his head. "Mortals do not decide these divine matters." Yet Selene awaited no command. She turned to Kronos and knelt, not in defeat but with ancient grace. "I've seen every lover who prayed to me," she confessed. "Yet I've only loved one who never asked." Then she rose. "I will be the one to be forgotten." Kronos remained silent, simply nodding once. With that, the wind shifted. The orchard shimmered, and slowly the moon began to fade. It did not fall from the sky but dimmed slowly, like a candle retreating into its last flicker. No eclipses, no storms, only a gentle disappearance. Across realms, poets awoke, bewildered. Tides twisted awkwardly. Wolves howled in confusion. Lovers murmured to a sky that no longer responded in silver. But in the orchard, the shift was absolute. After Selene's decision, the grove lost its brilliance. No halos glinted on the trees, no shimmering dewdrops on petals. The fruits weighed heavily, lacking light. The air, once thick with divine stillness, now moved simply, like any ordinary breeze. Andronikos stood under the branches, alone. He recalled everything. That was Kronos' final twist, leaving him with the memory of her, while the world forgot her entirely. No hymns sang for Selene, no temples arose, no prayers filled the air at full moons. Her name, once carved in stone and myth, vanished from society but not from his heart. He wandered through the orchard as if maintaining a graveyard's peace. Each tree became a relic, every shadow an echo of her presence. He stumbled upon her footprints pressed into the earth and dared not tread upon them. He placed a silver stone where the sundial had once stood, even though it no longer cast a shadow. The plants reacted differently, not worse but smaller. The blooms conformed gracefully, no longer bold enough to blossom out of season. The orchard returned to ordinary time, yet it remained marked. Neither Andronikos nor the land forgot. On clear nights, he could still sense her, a distant presence, unseen but felt. A light chill in the air reminded him of faraway starlight. Flowers would occasionally bloom without cause. In dreams, melodies wove through without memories attached. He murmured her name, not seeking responses but ensuring she lived on in someone's world. Though Kronos could erase her from stories, he could not unwrite the roots that had grown within a mortal heart. Thus, the orchard lived on, moonless and timeless, cherishing what the world was meant to forget. Years passed, and Andronikos no longer traversed through straight lines in time. Seasons cycled as always, though without haste. Spring arrived, bringing blossoms but none rivaling the moonflowers that once glowed against her skin. The grove thrived, yet it felt quieter, reminiscent of a room holding its breath post-funeral. Villagers visited, bringing sick children, broken bones, and hushed whispers. Andronikos healed as always, turning away no one. However, those who overextended their stay voiced concern over the silence, how the trees seemed to listen, and how the winds mourned among the leaves. No one uttered the moon's name, for they no longer remembered it ever existed. Yet the orchard retained the memory. On particular nights under the starry expanse, a fig tree would sporadically bloom. A solitary flower would open in the darkness without apparent reason. Such events weren't merely accidents, the land still remembered, even when the gods had chosen to forget. Andronikos roamed the orchard paths by lamplight, his hand light against tree trunks, eyes turned skyward where no goddess observed. He continued caring for the silver stone where the sundial had crumbled, planting white blooms around it that opened only under stillness. He never spoke her name aloud, there was no need. The orchard whispered it for him. Each healed branch, every breath carrying an unusual floral essence, and every lingering shadow beyond its due time, these were Selene's echoes. She had not been extinguished, she was simply hidden. Once, Andronikos had surrendered years for her touch. In return, she forfeited eternity to ensure his memory endured. Now, they intertwined within the soil, trees, and the silent beats between heartbeats. There were no shrines, no monuments, only a grove flourishing without reason, a place capable of igniting tears beyond understanding. Some claimed the healer was blessed. Others believed he had once loved something too vast to comprehend. Children playing nearby often claimed to catch glimpses of a faint light weaving through branches, silver as moonlight. Always, Andronikos would share a gentle smile because the orchard remembered, as long as it did, so would he. On an ordinary night, everything commenced with a ripple, not in the sky, but beneath the soil, through roots, along age-old branches that had flourished under divine light. The trees trembled, not from the wind but from memory. Andronikos perceived it before he manifestly recognized it. He had grown slower, hair turned white, hands finding comfort in stillness rather than motion. Yet his heart, forever linked to the orchard and all its recollections, pulsed with quiet anticipation. That night, the stars appeared brighter, constellations sharper, and for the first time in seasons, a long familiar scent wafted through the air. Frost graced the blooming moonflowers, which had remained dormant for years, since her absence. Stepping into the grove, breath visible in the crisp air, the orchard lay silent, seemingly awaiting something yet to arrive. Then it occurred. Above him, where only stars had dwelt, a sliver of silver light emerged, a crescent, pale and shy, yet undeniably hers. At that moment, the world below stirred. Wolves lifted their heads and howled with forgotten joy. Tides stirred in their slumber. Owls blinked towards the celestial presence as if welcoming a long-lost queen. The moon had returned, albeit only partially. This wasn't the same goddess who once danced among the fig trees. This moon donned no crown and uttered no hymns. It did not walk. It did not touch. It merely existed. Andronikos knelt in its silvery light, tears streaming down his cheeks, not from sadness but from recognition. She may never return as she was, but she had etched herself into the sky once more, not to defy Kronos, but to coexist with him. Some might contend that love culminates in memory, but Selene had transformed into more than mere recollection. She had become rhythm. The moon waxed and waned again. The orchard thrived in the dark. Children from neighboring villages began dreaming of silver orchards, a healer with gentle eyes, and a woman forged from starlight. No temple commemorated her return, and no priest chanted her name. Yet above, she watched, while below, he remembered. Their tale had triumphed against time once, and now it belonged to it. The orchard lived on. Years drifted by, followed by decades and even centuries. Empires rose and fell in the valleys below. Languages evolved, maps transformed. Yet high atop the long-neglected mountain, a constant stood, a grove of trees, half-wild, half-tamed, fig, pomegranate, silver olive, and peach, blooming beneath the waxing moon. Travelers shared stories about it, draped in half-truths. They referred to it as Selene's orchard, though none could remember who she was. No scroll recounted her. No temple bore her likeness. She had become lost, scattered like petals in the breeze. Yet the moon still rose, waxed and waned, wept and watched over dreams. Some claimed she appears, gliding through silver leaves, eyes sorrowful, hands gentle. For the broken-hearted, she offers silence, to the grieving, she provides rest. And to those daring enough to believe in impossible love, a single flower blooms beneath their window, white as starlight, faintly glowing. As for the healer, no grave acknowledges him, nor does a statue mark his passing. Yet those who stumble upon the orchard claim the winds hum a voice that is deep and steady. A voice that communicates not in words but in memory, a voice that understood love's cost and embraced it nonetheless. The orchard serves as both a tomb and temple. It seeks no prayers, only remembrance. Thus, the grove exists, not for gods but in defiance. It thrives where time once shattered, a place where a mortal offered his years as coins and a goddess surrendered eternity for the ache of a shared glance. Selene's orchard isn't listed on any map. It resides in the hearts of those who learned to love fervently yet were asked to let go. It speaks softly to those who cling to unattainable dreams. And during each full moon, when the wind shifts through fig trees and the earth carries the scent of lavender and frost, she returns, not as a physical being, not even as a name, but as a feeling, an echo, a glow, a love that has never truly departed, still quietly blooming. In a place known as Thieves, no weeping occurs. No procession wanders through marble streets. No lyres play, and no veils drape over mourning women's shoulders. Instead, the palace lies silent, its torches unlit, its courtyards empty. The weight of denial hangs heavy, not from grief, but from confusion. Lady File, daughter of the thieves' noble house, walks alone through the remnants of Megaran Hall. Her gown trails ash. Her fingers tremble, bare as they brush against soot-stained walls where her mother once hung garlands during celebrations. No funeral nor procession marks the occasion. Her mother, Queen Meermine, didn't perish from sickness or mishap. She fell at the hands of her own son. Theron, the rightful heir, confessed in front of magistrates. No trial occurred, he didn't attempt to deny the crime. He marched to Apollo's temple with blood-stained hands, knelt at the altar, and murmured a single phrase, "The god commanded it." File wasn't present to hear him. She was called later, too late to see her mother's lifeless form or to hold her cold hands. Now, she's told to grieve in silence, the gods decreed it. Her brother remains unpunished, locked within the palace, yet not guarded by soldiers but by divine laws. Apollo's priests sealed the temple doors. They never speak Mayan's name. Thieves do not weep, as they dare not challenge the gods. Yet File weeps, not with dried tears but with a simmering fire within. Her silence doesn't convey surrender, it signifies restraint. When justice is consumed by heaven, when gods show favoritism, and mothers perish by divine whims, she kneels before the cold hearth where her mother once warmed hands, where stories formed, lullabies filled the air, and blessings graced their homes. Now, the hearth remains unlit. No flame dares flicker for a woman slain in the name of prophecy. Yet, File does not kneel to mourn but to remember. If the gods presume the matter is resolved, if they believe justice has been served, they underestimate File, daughter of ashes. Her demand is simple, justice, not vengeance, not blood, only accountability for her mother's death. She approaches Apollo's temple where high priests stand draped in cold robes before sacred stones, their gazes clouded by incense and trepidation. They've received Theron's confession, bowed their heads, offered sacrifices, then sealed their lips like tombs. But File persists. She kneels before the oracle at Delphi, a girl slightly older than herself. The spectators in the chamber grow quiet as the priestess inhales, allowing the god to enter her. Her words don't echo, but settle. The gods do not reverse their proclamations. Fate has made its circle. The blood shed must be weighed against that which remains. Peace will not return to Thieves until the daughter becomes the bride. The hall remains still, the declaration lacks clarity. The oracle turns her head slowly, seemingly compelled by a celestial will, fixing her gaze on File. You will marry the one who killed the womb that bore you. There is no alternative. Gasps ripple through the audience. Even the priests seem unsettled. File's body rises slowly, each muscle rebelling against her fate. The pillars loom overhead like gravestones. The crowd parts, none dare meet her eyes. Theron's name never escapes their lips, it doesn't need to. The gods have spoken their will, demanding she not only forgive but also unite with the hand that ended her family. Dubbed peace, unity, and restoration, what she perceives merely sounds like mockery. No punishment, no exile, no mourning, only a wedding veil where a funerary shroud ought to rest. Preparations resume in Thieves. White linen is ordered, and a feast is arranged. Priests whisper that this indicates divine healing, proof that bloodshed can intertwine into harmony. Yet, File remains silent. When nobles bless the union, she responds with no words. When priests seek her consent, she turns her face to the wall. The city grows anxious, fearing more divine wrath if the oracle's command is defied. The palace perseveres, a date is established. Altars prepare. Even the sky seems to dim. In her solitude, File visits her mother's ashes, contained in a sealed urn beneath the temple floor, unmarked to avoid drawing Apollo's attention. There, she kneels and whispers not prayers but promises. She will not forget. She will not forgive. Each day, new offerings are made to the goddess of marriage. Each night, File stands in her mother's garden, where no blooms have blossomed since the murder, tracing her fingers along the thorny remains of lifeless roses. Though she speaks nothing, the air around her thickens. The gods have erred, they assumed the daughter would submit. They never considered the possibility of her breaking. For thieves have witnessed bloodshed before, yet not like this. File, the noble child, has transformed from a daughter of peace into something more, a reckoning waiting to emerge. On the eve of the wedding, File stands alone in her mother's ruined garden, where laurel, myrrh and roses once flourished. The flowers are long gone, leaving only twisted, dry thorns, like a crown left to decay. This place held memories of ancient songs, letters turned to hymns, and where justice first felt more than just a concept, now it feels like a grave. Above, noblemen prepare for celebration. The palace has been scoured of sorrow. Musicians rehearse and perfumed doves wait in cages, ready to be released at the first kiss. The city believes that the marriage between File and Theron will lift their curse and restore divine forms. However, File has grown increasingly suspicious of gods who smile. Kneeling in the garden soil, she retrieves a dagger from beneath her cloak. Its handle is simple, the blade worn. Once her mother's, it's not intended for battle but for pruning sacred herbs, a caring tool, a symbol of healing. File kisses the aged hilt, pressing the blade into her palm, silently letting blood spill onto the earth. This isn't a plea for help, it's a vow. No priest consecrated it, no oracle would deem it sacred. Yet in the dying garden, beneath the indifferent sky, she makes a promise. She will not become a bride. She will not be a pawn caught between gods and kings. She will not allow her mother's death to be rewritten into a sacrificial myth. If thieves require unity, it shall be forged in the flames of fury, not silk. If peace demands submission, she will counter it with defiance. Her blood seeps into the earth, and the garden stirs. A single black rose, once presumed dead, blossoms at her feet, sharp petals, devoid of fragrance. File plucks it and places it behind her ear. Rising, dagger in hand, they may dress her in white and bind her to her murderer in the name of harmony. But for this night, the garden has returned her name, not daughter, not bride, but flame, ash, and judgment. Dawn breaks over thieves, slicing like a serrated knife drawn steadily. The sun envelops the city in gold, yet its warmth fails to touch the hearts of those watching File walk through the palace gates. Dressed in ceremonial white, not by her choosing, but imposed upon her, it feels like a shroud. Servant girls braid her hair into tight coils, daring not to meet her eyes. Around her neck, a golden chain meant to symbolize unity feels like iron. Thieves hold their breath. This day is meant to lift the curse, blood reconciled with blood, a day when the gods will be appeased. Yet as File approaches the altar set at the city square's edge, a silent question ripples through the gathering crowd: why does the bride not smile? Theron awaits at the altar, dressed simply, not as a warrior but as any groom should be, no sword or shield, merely olive branches in his hair and trembling hands belonging to one who obeyed the gods yet feels no peace. Priests chant hymns to Hea, to Apollo, to any deity that might bless this impossible union. They lift sacred oils and unveil the bridal veil, yet File remains silent. When prompted, she does not step forward nor utter her ceremonial vow. Resolutely, she turns slowly, facing the audience, nobles, soldiers, priests, those who remained silent. She extends her palm. The cut has yet to mend. A red bloom stains the white of her sleeve. Whispers rise. Another black rose, full and blooming, is gathered into her braid. The ground beneath the altar cracks slightly, allowing dust to rise and fear to mount. File does not flee, she stands waiting, the ensuing silence louder than any hymn. The city came expecting peace from the gods, yet they've overlooked what peace founded in blood demands. She, daughter of ashes, has come not to marry but to witness, and perhaps to undo. The oracle's decree is clear, a marriage intended to reunite what has been torn apart. Yet oracles often speak in riddles, and fate, once pronounced, writhes unpredictably. File remains voiceless regarding the wedding vow. Her silence cuts deeply, and thieves feel their first wound. Before the priest can bless the union, the wind transforms, not softly but in a sudden, unnatural stillness, as if time suspends in anticipation of an impending scream. The torch flames flicker, the veil rises without hands. Theron steps forward, eyes pleading. His voice drops low, meant for her only, if this is penance, I endure it. If this is punishment, I accept it. File doesn't waver, fixing her gaze upon him. You obeyed a god, she states. Not justice. A murmur ripples through the crowd, they arrived seeking ritual, redemption, not reckoning. The priest calls for order, yet File turns to him, her eyes sharp as flint. Did Apollo weep when my mother died? She questions. Did he bless the blood that stained our home? Silence prevails. File proceeds to do what the gods will not. She curses the altar. Drawing the dagger from her sleeve, a small ceremonial piece made of polished bone, not meant to inflict harm but rather to mark, she slices into her palm, releasing blood upon the sacred stone where generations pledged their love. I will not bind myself to a murderer, she proclaims. Not by law, not by prophecy, not by fear. Gasps, shouts, a noble faints. Somewhere, a priest drops a scroll. Though the earth doesn't tremble, the ensuing silence feels akin to a breath held before a storm's arrival. Theron refrains from arguing or resisting. Instead, he bows his head, not in shame but in relief. The crowd sees him not as a villain for the first time but as a man undone by the commands of a god. File steps down from the altar and walks away. No one stops her, not even Apollo. For when a mortal rejects the will of Olympus, only two outcomes may unfold: the gods will punish her or they will heed her. In this moment, not even the wind dares to speak her name. The city of thieves does not sleep that night. Some whisper that File has gone mad, others claim a new prophet has risen, one who boldly confronted the gods and emerged alive. Priests lock their temple doors. Nobles bar their entrances. Soldiers await a sign, any indication of divine punishment. Yet no indications arrive, no thunder rends the heavens, no plagues afflict their grain, no idols weep in sorrow. Only the moon remains, solemnly low, silent as a watchful eye. Meanwhile, File does not return to the palace. Instead, she wanders barefoot through the city, her ceremonial gown stained with earth and blood. Children gaze from their windows. An elderly woman offers her bread, yet File shakes her head. What she seeks cannot be baked or brewed. Justice, once pursued from the gods and oracles, must now be forged from within. By morning, the Senate convenes amidst the crisis. Some call for her arrest, while others, fearful of another curse, request offerings and appeasements. Yet the townspeople have observed her, listened to her, and something has shifted. For decades, thieves obeyed the gods unquestioningly. What did this bring aside from wars, famine, and kinslaying masked in divine prophecy? The people begin murmuring that perhaps obedience is not piety. Perhaps it wears a laurel adorned in fear. File returns to her mother's sacred garden and begins excavating, not to create a grave or a shrine but a pyre. She constructs it from dry, thorny branches, her ceremonial gown, the torn veil, and sanguine linens left at the altar. When ignited, the flames burn with an unnatural brightness, as if they had long awaited this moment. File utters no prayers nor sings hymns. But thieves stand as witnesses, their breath held, an omen manifests. Not one god answers. No lightning bolt rends the sky, yet the people gather, not by obligation, but instinctively. Drawn to the glow and aroma of rosemary and ash, something sacred, not divine, but human, unfolds. Before the last embers fade, File's face is illuminated in the flickering orange light. She carries no scepter, wears no wreath. Yet in this moment, she appears more like a prophet than any priest. A young soldier, barely a boy whose armor still glimmers from his first campaign, steps forward, kneeling not in reverence, but in recognition. "I saw her die," he murmurs, voice trembling. "The Queen, I heard her calling for mercy." Theron's eyes close. The soldier continues, "And I witnessed you. That truth lies buried beneath the legends." Theron did not hasten, he did not spare her. He obeyed the will of the god yet did not challenge it. Gradually, the crowd shifts. Understanding offers no comfort, it weighs heavily. One by one, others stand forward, nurses who aided File, merchants with vanished daughters, old men still bearing scars from wars waged for Olympus. They all obeyed and faced the consequences. Now, the question turns to File, what comes next? The gods are silent, the king is gone, and the city waits. Stepping among the fading embers, she holds her hands over the ashes. "I will not construct temples," she vows. "I won't raise statues, but I commit to keeping this fire alive so we never forget what blind obedience can cultivate." No applause arises, no hymns are sung. Yet the first wind that blows since the curse lifted sweeps through the crowd, cool, genuine, human. For the first time in generations, thieves choose conscience over command. That evening, as the embers softly die down, a figure approaches the outskirts of thieves, no laurels or gilded chariots, merely a white cloak and a lyre slung over his back. His footsteps make no sound. The guards at the gate bow in horror, yet he pays them no mind. Apollo has come to bear witness to the aftermath of obedience. He finds File seated beside the pyre, her hair dusted with ash, gaze fixed on the stars. She doesn't flinch as he approaches. "You've conjured quite the display," the god states, his voice as gentle as twilight. File turns gradually. "Not nearly as much as you did," she responds. She bears no fear now. Apollo squats beside the fire pit, tracing a finger through the soot. "You broke the vow." "I never made one," she retorts defiantly. "You sought submission, I offered truth." With slow, understanding nods, Apollo's gaze drifts to the smoke, as if considering her assertion. "I never anticipated that you would scream," he remarks quietly. Typically, mortals remain silent. File rises. "Then perhaps you should listen more closely." The silence between them feels connected, one thread tautly stretched between two realms, one of fate, the other of choice. Then, Apollo poses the question she never envisioned. What is it you desire? File steps closer, steadily, deliberately, grounded by the weight of her own essence. I yearn for my mother back. I want my brother unbroken. I want the city I envisioned in stories, not this one dominated by fear. Apollo tilts his head in curiosity. And if I cannot grant you such, then remain gone. The god rises, warm as the sun, but flickering like a dying star. You speak as if you outweigh mere mortality. File doesn't flinch. No, I merely speak as someone who remembers what mortals are meant to be. He studies her, contemplating, before answering. Eventually, Apollo, the god of prophecy, light, and reason, bows his head, not in defeat but acknowledgement. Upon his departure into the twilight, the city remains unchanged. The stars continue to pulse, the winds disperse the ashes, leaving the world quiet, mortal, and sanctified as hers. Thieves do not sleep for days, not from fear but from something stranger, reflection. The populace refrains from chanting prayers to unseen gods. Instead, they gather at wells, rooftops, and empty shrines engaging in quiet discussions, not of oracles, but of File. She has broken no divine laws yet shattered the illusion of an unbeatable divinity. At the city theater, where tragedies once nourished stately myths, the chorus returns, not masked, scripted tones, merely human. A blind priestess recalls her years spent cautioning children to obey the gods. A former soldier mourns his wife, buried by Apollo's decree. Even the king's steward admits to hiding offerings he can no longer stomach. Each voice strengthens their weight. Each sorrow reveals fractures in the gilded concept of obedience. File doesn't attend these gatherings, rather, she's seen on the city's periphery, tending to her mother's neglected grave, restoring the garden scorched by the gods. Theron, though reticent, remains close. He speaks little, sharing just enough food. His once proud demeanor crumbles into quietude. Remorse, it seems, may outlast any curse. One day, when he sits beside her, fingers intertwined with the soil, a child approaches, not to throw stones but to offer a flower. The first time in years anyone dared call him brother aloud, a slow transformation begins, unclean, unholy, but decidedly human, and that's what the city learns to cherish. Even the old statues fade, not physically but symbolically. Their narratives lose strength. The temple floors gather dust. The offerings grow sparse. Yet crops thrive, rain falls, and laughter echoes. No afflictions descend from the heavens, instead, life flourishes, full of unpredictable grace. Over time, the realization becomes clear, the gods do not nourish thieves, the city has always sustained itself. Yet, it had forgotten until a woman cloaked in ash reminded them. A new chorus rises, one composed of memory, not lamentation, one not etched in stone but flesh. Their refrain is uncomplicated, we remember. We refuse. Years drift by, and thieves evolve, yet slowly the temples remain standing, though fewer candles illuminate their interiors. Statues endure, but ivy now creeps over their heads rather than gold. In place of new myths, people share stories about File, not as a saint or martyr, but as a woman who refused the silence demanded by the gods. Living simply away from the palace, her garden, once scorned, blooms back to life. No divine miracle restores it, only earth, patience, and mortal resilience. Children often visit, drawn by the remarkable tranquility enveloping her. They implore her to share tales, not of Zeus or Athena, but of the day the sun bent to a mortal. File would smile but would never speak of Apollo again. Theron remained, his presence ever present in the periphery of her garden, rarely leaving. He bore his shame not as a curse but as a scar, visible, unhidden, and surmountable. On the anniversary of the murder, he brought blooms, not lilies favored by the gods, but wild marigolds, and they would not wilt. One evening, as the wind grew agitated and crows flew low, a child turned to File, "Do you still have faith in gods?" She reflected a moment and replied, "I believe. In memory, in fire, and in what comes after both." The girl tilted her head. "Is that all?" "Not quite," File responded, brushing ash from the petals of a red bloom. "I also believe in refusal. That night, a storm brews, not divine, merely weather. Rain lashes through thieves, cleansing dirt from ancient shrines. Lightning splits the ruins, and amidst the chaos, no god arrives to punish or forgive. Mortals huddle indoors, awakening to a tranquil dawn." File, now silver-haired, stands barefoot in her garden. Her hands are caked with soil, her face adorned with lines formed not through aging but through knowing excessively. A breeze lifts a single leaf from her mother's grave. Ash rises into the early morning air, dispersing. Somewhere far beyond thieves, a god observes, but remains silent. Sometimes silence is the only offering a courageous soul can attain, and often, ashes do not signify endings, they symbolize new beginnings. The once vibrant city of Troy has become ash and bone. The sea carries the smoke westward, resembling a funeral veil over the Aegean. Among victorious sailors returning, one vessel sails without garlands, hymns, or offerings, a battered bronze helm and a crimson sail patched together by mortal hands. At its helm stands Theros, a captain without legacy, a warrior unbound from the divine. He fought alongside kings who boasted of lineage from Zeus and feasted beside men claiming Athena whispered in their ears. Yet Timoris hears no divine voice. He listens only to the breeze, hunger, the groaning hull, and weary crew. His victories arise, not through blessings but determination. When he claims his triumph, he raises his cup, not to Olympus but to the spirit of mankind. The gods may cast bronze down upon the earth, he declares to his crew, but we mold it into blades ourselves. His crew cheers, fueled by salt, smoke, and survival. However, high in the heavens, Poseidon rouses. To dismiss the gods is one thing, to deny them acknowledgement, is another altogether. As the Maius vessel shifts toward home, an unusual calm surrounds the waters. No birds fly. No oars break the surface. The wind coils inward, settling into silence. Suddenly, the sea rises, not in fury, but in disdain. A wave crashes against the ship's side like a forsaken king's backhand. The hit isn't enough to drown them, merely to dislodge. When Theros opens his eyes once more, the world has warped. The map in his hand reveals no markings. The constellations twist and grow distorted. Even the moon withholds its guidance. The gods refrain from striking him down, they choose to unravel his journey. From the depths of shadows Poseidon waits, not with wrath, but with the gaze reserved for those who believe they outgrow their creators. When the haze clears, Theros spots land, an uneven island rising from the waters, unnamed, uncharted, carrying an unnerving silence. No gulls soar, no waves brush the shore. The island merely sits still, as if it too were banished and yearned for companionship. He docks alone. His crew, troubled by the eeriness, refuses to disembark. Boldly defiant, the Maius welcomes the challenge. "Let the gods send me riddles," he mutters, "I will solve them." As he walks along the sandy beach, weight feels heavy beneath his steps. However, sound dies mid-stride. Even his breath seems swallowed. When he cries out, he receives no reply, no echo, no response. This isn't silence, it is a void of response. He wanders deeper into the land, sword drawn. Petrified trees bend mid-motion, caught in unseen enchantments. Flowers bloom, yet without a fragrance. A waterfall spouts over black rock, yet its roar is muted. Eventually, he discovers them, figures once vivid, now statues tempered not through chisel but life, warriors, children, lovers embraced, all with open mouths, frozen as if lamenting, all unheard. He recognizes one, the captain from Troy, who he witnessed scream in battle. Now, he's marble, mouth agape, voice lost. The truth gnaws at him. This is the island of silence where proud voices perish, a domain Poseidon reserves for those daring to murmur louder than Olympus. Theros feels his throat constrict, a chilling ripple scrolling down his spine. Yet he refuses to yield. Instead, he settles beneath the silent waterfall, etching his blade into the rock wall, not words of prayer, but names of his crew, those living, those lost, those all but forgotten. He refuses to be erased. He refuses to be silenced. As he pivots to leave, the ground sighs. A subtle tremor emerges, not approval or affirmation, merely acknowledgement. The statues remain, yet the wind has returned. One gust brushes his cheek, softly murmuring his name back to him. Theros, not an echo, but a warning. The sea waits, the next island will not offer such mercy. Days glide by, or perhaps mere hours, a sense distorted in unmarked waters. Theros' ship creaks forward beneath skies that never truly brighten nor darken. Then one morning, a fleece-thick fog creeps in. Within it floats the scent of roasted lamb, laughter, and music. He blinks, and a magnificent ship emerges from the mist, gilded sails, bronze railings. Amid banquet dresses, warriors lift goblets, dancing to unseen lyres. Brothers of Troy, one beckons. Join the feast. Wine flows, and the gods have forgiven us. Theros knows better. He has watched too many men perish in Troy, too many. Yet there they sway, grinning with eerily similar eyes, souls that once smiled now appear glassy and starved. His crew urges him to board, yet he resists. The other ship's gangway slithers toward them like a serpent. Music blares louder. One of his men leaps overboard and scrambles aboard. Blade sheathed but ready. The banquet sprawls opulently, roasted boar, sweet figs overflowing from platters. Yet no food is warm. No wine is sweet. Every dish carries salt water, each goblet drips brine. One soldier grins overly wide, choking on a crab. Another convulses, arms flailing like kelp in water. A third gnaws on his tongue. It's not a feast but rather drowning disguised as festivity. This isn't Poseidon's trickery, it's Lolanthaea, a sea nymph who seduces stranded sailors with the illusion of comfort before drawing them into the depths. Theros unsheathes his blade, not to engage but to sever the memory. He calls out each name of his crew, reminding them of wives, homes, and victories. The litany of their names blackens their ears like fire. They writhe, stumble, scream, yet the illusions disperse. The gilded ship dissolves like early morning mist. The sea spits them back, gasping and shivering. 3 have perished, frozen in smiles. The remaining souls remember not everything but just enough. Standing once more at the helm, he finds silence. However, he has tasted the costs of his exile. This journey will not test his resolve but rather his memory, bit by bit. Even now, he's slowly beginning to forget the sound of his mother's voice. The wind returns, yet it carries an odd scent, like jasmine over decaying wood. The sky darkens into shimmering violet shades while the sea smooths, resembling a mirror. That night, stars blink out, one by one. Then, they start to sing. It doesn't sound like music, but resonates with familiarity. Varus stumbles to the deck, and his crew freezes. One murmurs the name of his deceased sister, another laughs like a boy reuniting with his mother for the first time. A third kneels, overjoyed, tears cascading down his visage. Varus registers nothing. More accurately, he only hears the absence of what they perceive. The sirens have come. Yet, these are not the seductive harpies of old. No, these beings are daughters of Lethe, offspring of the river of forgetfulness, whose melody doesn't lure but nourishes identity. Each note they sing doesn't entice, it erases. One man plunges into the sea, calling for his childhood dog. Another strives to inscribe his mother's name on his arm, yet he can't remember the letters. Varus ties himself to the mast, not to resist but to anchor himself. He thrusts a blade into his thigh, the pain stabilizes him. With blood and sweat, he carves his identity into the wood, not for others, for himself. Timures, son of Dorian, who does not kneel. The nymphs circle, vexed. They screech and hiss. One lands on the rail, mouth agape, empty, devoid of a tongue, a void encompassing stories, spiraling into oblivion. Timures holds their gaze, recounting the names of those lost, his mother, his city, and the shape of his father's hands, every first scar and final tear. Each name strikes like a confession, and bit by bit, the sirens retreat. The sea churns ferociously, as if furious that their meal has escaped. A few crew members require binding, others might never heal. One man will spend his days humming a tune only he can hear. Despite surviving, Varus has changed. He can still visualize their faces, remembering his mother's laughter has faded. That subtle sound is lost, traded for survival. In the silence that follows, he ponders how much more of himself he might lose on this voyage. After escaping the sirens, Timures' crew discovers a fleeting sense of refuge upon smooth waters and distant gulls. Hope rekindles until an island unexpectedly surfaces. Low and veiled in mist, unmarked on any chart. Birds wheel over its cliffs, and the wind carries whispers of introductions. Welcome, Captain. Welcome, husband. Welcome, thief. Welcome, son. Each man hears a unique greeting. Upon touchdown, the island shifts. Paths alter. Trees bend toward them, limbs extending like pointing fingers. A stream moves backward. The dusk flutters between day and night. They encounter a woman on the shore, tall, robed, ancient. I am Name, she asserts, embodying the first memory. Her gaze pierces through each of them. You walk where names are formed and unformed. Speak yours if you still know it. Varus replies, Varus of Dorian, captain of. The wind howls, and the crew screams. One man, Petros, forgets how to articulate. Another, Wenos, remembers his childhood, fading into the woods, tracking a voice only he hears. Names unravel, not obliterated, but unstitched, not cruelly but methodically. Timures stands resolute. He engraves names into bark, seals into the earth, chants oaths aloud. Name merely smiles. You came to defy the gods, yet names, like prayers, become offerings. Even defiance can serve as worship. Perhaps, Varus counters, but I honor the will of man. Yet the island replies in silence. Later that night, a storm unfurls above, no rain, merely voices crashing like thunder. Darius covers his ears and dreams of his mother once more. This time, however, he cannot visualize her face. Upon awakening, half of his crew forgets who he is. One man clutches his knife, bewildered. Darius stands alone atop a cliff, wind whipping against his cheeks, shouting his name into the ocean. Darius? The island returns nothing except a lone gull that responds, leading him to the shore. The ship remains, tangible, real, still his. He sets out again, battered but undefeated. No map awaits him, yet he still has his name. At present, the sea grows cruel once more, not from Poseidon's wrath against vessels, but subtly. The sky bears no clouds, the waters glide smoothly, yet whispers intertwine with broken syllables, whispers, meanings, half-sentences implanted within theirs. Your father's voice. The sound of your name on your lover's lips. That which you will forget next. The crew sleeps uneasily. They clutch onto memories like leaking vessels, reciting childish prayers or old songs, anything to remain whole. Suddenly, the storm strikes. Not with thunder or lightning, only a chaotic surge of language. Tongues whirl wildly across the deck, expressed by no human voice. The sails flutter with voices, ropes hiss with unfamiliar cadences. The sea foams with syllables attempting to label what has never existed. Darius stumbles, covering his ears. Yet the storm isn't heard. It's comprehended. Each phrase strikes heavy, akin to confession. He sinks to his knees, whispering apologies to long-gone souls. Then the wave rises, not of water, but of memories, a deluge of everything lost to him. His wet nurse's lullabies, the laughter of an envious boy, the first lie, the final tear. The wave crashes, he awakens in silence, gripping the tiller. The ship remains afloat, yet time has shifted. His beard lengthens, his hands throb. Half the crew has vanished, or perhaps they never existed. The sea is calm once more, seemingly unchanged. Yet Darius knows better, something has been taken. Not solely memories but their significances. He can recall the color of his mother's eyes, yet what they mean now eludes him. He gazes at his hands, questioning their ownership. That night, a dolphin swims beside the vessel. It blinks once before speaking, not in words, but through feeling. You're nearing Mimosine, the realm of tight memory, mother of muses. Unlike Olympians, she does not tolerate forgetfulness. Beyond the storm of words, the sea remains disturbingly still, holding its breath as if awaiting prophecy or the silence buried in a tomb. A figure looms amidst the ocean, not an island, nor a whirlpool. It seems memory has taken form. Black water falls inward endlessly, and at its heart stands a winding staircase made of moonstone spiraling down into nothingness. Amias refuses to question the incomprehensible. He anchors the ship, and descends. Each step strips away something unseen, fear, hunger, pride. Not eradicated, merely suspended, like tools left behind before entering a temple. Upon doing so, he finds himself in a hall of mirrors. Each reflective surface holds his essence, some proud, some ruined, others monstrous. In one, he bears a crown, in another, its chains. One mirror shatters as he walks past, and he flinches, unsure if it's his reflection or destiny that crumbles. At the hall's end, a grand door appears, carved with names, thousands of them. Some he recognizes, many he does not. Upon reaching out, the entryway opens, revealing her, Mimosine. She doesn't resemble a god, a mortal, nor a titan, but embodies every memory of his mother woven into moonlight. Her mere presence slows, then halts time. "Why have you come?" she queries, feeling more like a test. "I seek to return home," he responds. "Wrong," she counters. "You wish to revert to who you were." With a raised hand, she stretches a swirl of golden threads between them, displaying images, names, regrets. "You cast off the gods, you lauded free will. Yet here you kneel, requesting a goddess to reconstruct your wholeness." Eros remains silent. "Will you relinquish your memories?" she queries. "Abandon grief, guilt. I could lighten your burden, but what's the cost?" He retreats a step, then advances. "I will carry them." The hall trembles. Mimosin smiles, not warmly but knowingly. "You may pass." Beyond her, a gate opens, not to the realm of the living, but to the essence of his very soul. He steps through Mimosin's gate, entering a grove that carries the essence of childhood. However, this isn't an ordinary land. It resides in layers, like pages of unwritten diaries, hovering moments side by side. This isn't the underworld, nor Olympus. It's the garden of remembered lives. Here, memory carries form. The stone he stubbed his toe on as a child glimmers faintly with significance. The first girl who broke his heart lounges by a well, combing her hair while humming a melody he'd forgotten. Yet he cannot reach out to touch her, as she fades upon his approach. He wanders farther. In the distance, a younger version of himself appears, bolder, more boisterous, filled with youthful confidence. This earlier self trains, sword in hand, striking at phantom-like gods. Gradually, he sees them, his crew, those lost to the sirens, those he cherished, lied to, or led. They smile as he strolls past. One extends a hand, not to scold but to return a memory, a small wooden talisman they carved together on the ship's maiden voyage. Tamures seizes it, having long abandoned joy. The ground quakes, the air shifts. Emerging through the trees, a woman appears, draped in smoke and bark, her eyes not eyes but minuscule mirrors. Gazing within them, everything he has done and every potential unfolds. "Who are you?" he inquires. "I am your mother's memory of you," she replies, pressing a kiss to his brow. In that moment, he recalls death as an emotion rather than a sight, the grief igniting his quest for battle, the sadness buried within arrogance. He sinks to his knees, not from guilt but because he can perform feeling once more. The garden murmurs, "You are nearly whole." The horizon fractures, revealing a sea of stars, not the sky, but boundless memories. His voyage has never been about finding home, it's about becoming the man who once left it. The stars dissolve into gears, and when Eros blinks, the sky heightens not to night, but machinery, cosmic and unending, spinning in profound silence. Beneath him, the sea freezes into crystalline stillness, reflecting not the present but every moment that has ever existed. He crosses into Kronos' realm. Every breath ages and rejuvenates him. One heartbeat turns him into a boy once more, the next, his bones creak with ancient weariness. In this place, time carries no rhythm, only outcomes. A bridge of shattered hours guides him onward. There, upon a throne shaped from ticking clocks and sundials now reduced to dust, sits Kronos, neither aged nor young, but constant. His eyes remain hollow, filled with millennia of memories. "You are late," Kronos announces. Or perhaps the sentence concluded before it ever began. "I never requested your summons," Tamures retorts, his voice echoes strangely, as if spoken in reverse. Kronos leans forward. "You loved a goddess. You defied Poseidon. You delved into your own memory. You seek a home that no longer exists. I only yearn for compassion, Timures answers resolutely. Then allow me to show you. Kronos reaches out, and the world around Theros fractures into time splinters. He sees himself as he could have been, a father, a tyrant, a forgotten sailor, a drunkard, a legend. He glimpses Selene standing alone on a mountaintop, unable to reach him. He witnesses enemies surrendered, friends diminished. Every path that he left unchosen. Every moment you believed you were free, Kronos proclaims, but you were merely a thread woven into a tapestry you never perceived. Timures quakes, stepping forward. I may be a thread, but I choose where to fray. Kronos narrows his gaze. You dare challenge the tapestry itself? No, Theros murmurs softly, I would leave it. Reaching into his chest, he pulls forth a memory, a token his crewmate gifted him in the orchard. It symbolizes grief, joy, and choice. He holds it aloft. Kronos smiles, not benevolently, but intriguingly. The gears freeze for the first time in eons. You may leave, he concedes, but no home will await you. Timures strides through the silence. He doesn't look back. He doesn't return to change, he walks to reshape the meaning of his loss. Tice steps outside of Kronos' domain, yet no storm greets him, no wreckage, no divine intervention, and no vengeance, only an unmarked island, uncharted, unsung by minstrels or scrolls. It reveals a tranquil place where time doesn't flow. Theros recognizes no names, yet one, clear and fresh, stands out, Theros the unbroken. No temple crowns the hills here, no palace stands collapsed, only fig orchards and serenity, undisturbed by sound. He wanders freely as birds do not shy away from him, the grass leans closer, inquisitive. A lone tree sits at the center of the island, split down the middle, one side soaring with spring and the other wilting into autumn. Beneath it rests a girl, unadorned with a crown or armor, merely a necklace crafted from bone and amber. I imagined your ship, she comments, but you have no vessel. I no longer require one, he replies. She offers him water, a bowl brimming with clarity. He drinks, finding it sweet without visions, curses, or bargains, only nourishment. Why did you come here? She questions. I didn't, the road concluded. Then what now? His gaze rests upon the sea. No horizon glimmers, only vacant space. He sits beside her. I'll wait, he articulates, not for gods, nor glory, but for the next castaway. She smiles, and within her, Theros senses the laughter of his crew, warmth from his mother, Selene's sorrow, and the profound silence of Kronos. He begins to carve a name into the driftwood beside his own, not one he recognizes, but one that could belong to the next sailor washed ashore. For exile can be sacred, and on land untouched by stories, a new one begins. Years flow in silence. Not that Theros counts them, he upholds a steady rhythm of life. Time lingers on the island, merely lingering, akin to the scent of salt in ancient sails or the whisper of a half-remembered lullaby. People arrive, lost sailors, flawed poets, dreamers adrift in the world's cracks. To each, Theros offers no solutions but rather listens to their tales. He provides no maps, only tools to carve their names into driftwood. He never encounters Selene again, neither in the heavens nor in dreams. However, the moon seems to shine ever bright above, as if watching. Eventually, a girl appears, no older than he once was. She approaches the shores without a crown or armor, merely a necklace woven from bone and amber. I've heard tales about the man who challenged the sea, she remarks. Theros smiles. He failed, still, they called him unbroken. He chuckles wholeheartedly, yet the story lied slightly. she settles beside him. "Can you teach me how to carve a name?" He hands her the blade. As she begins etching her initials into a piece of driftwood, the sea shimmers just once, not from waves, but from recognition. It seems that Poseidon, Kronos, and Mimosin, and even Selene, finally comprehend. This voyage has never been about returning, it's about reconstructing the essence of home. Thereus once more strolls along the shore. His footprints, a fleeting trace, never endure, washed away. Yet the driftwood names multiply, dozens, then hundreds, none forgotten. Because he remembers. Because the island remembers. In the end, memory is the only voyage that truly matters. The captain who never returned, for he had finally found his place.